Hello and welcome to a brand new episode and part 2 of this How I Made a Big, Hairy, Scary Change. If you haven't listened to part 1, do go back. It's the previous episode and it will just give a bit of context to that. So I'm not going to spend all of this episode summarising. If you want to listen along, do go back and have a little listen. So I'm going to jump straight into part 2. And talk a little bit about what it actually took to make the change. I think sometimes there's this sense of I'll just ask the universe, or I'll just write it in my goal book, or I'll just sign up for the course. And once you've done that first thing, that everything falls into place. Well, I tell you what, my friends, when I've been trying to grow something, when I've been trying to accelerate or proceed with something, it hasn't just been a point and press. It's been a journey. Oh my goodness, it's right there, isn't it? The J word. It's been a journey of small, purposeful steps. And I'm going to talk through a little bit more about that. So I'm going to give 5 points just to kind of break it down. So the first topic I want to cover is around the costs, the gains, and the up levels and the triggers. So let's go into a bit more detail. So I signed up for the coaching course, but then what I had to do was I really had to get a sense of what it would cost me. And that can be everything from petrol to time, to energy, to relationships, to things that I quite like doing but are going to have to go on the back burner. But getting really clear on what that looks like up front really helped me to make great progress. And actually it was quite motivating having that why straight there in the back of my mind. And I made the decision very early on that I was going to complete this training in less than a year. And I did it in around 11 months, and that felt really good to me. At times it was a stretch, and at times, like my mum would say to me, right, this thing, it needs to go now. You need to hand it in. You can't tweak it. You can't fiddle around with it. Because I think sometimes, especially if you really care about what you're doing, if it's taken a lot of effort and energy and concentration, sometimes the temptation at the end is to sort of fiddle-faddle around with it and procrastinate about actually sending the thing. So that's what I had to do. Also throughout that, it felt really tough at times because the amount of work that I had to complete alongside earning a living, alongside commuting a lot, alongside keeping some kind of semblance of normal life and spending some time with my partner. And I remember it was a year of quite a lot of weddings and a lot of 30ths and things like that. So I had to be really discerning with my time, but really noticing what were the gains that I was going to gain. And this is really important with any goals. And it's not just about the certificate, like I mentioned at the end of it. It's about really going into the detail on how it's going to change your life. And at first you might be like, Nikki, wow, change my life? I'm only doing a Pinterest course, or I'm only doing an X, Y, and Z. But I want you to really allow yourself to feel the full weight and the full gloriousness of the full glory, should I say, of that ripple effect. So I may have mentioned this before. A while ago, I was selling our rocking chair that we'd had for both our kids. And it was one of those things where it was sitting, looking very lovely in the middle of the room. But actually I was like, okay, this baby that we have, she's not that into it, and it takes up a lot of space in our room. So even though it made me feel a bit sad and the end of an era, I was like, okay, we've got to sell this thing. So I put it on a local Facebook group, and a woman who actually just lives down the road from me responded and said, yes, I would love this, and that would be really great. So we arranged delivery, and she messaged me on the day and said, I just wanted to let you know, because I think it's important that you know. I was like, oh my goodness, what is she going to say? That I bought one of your courses in 2017. And I just wanted to let you know that I wrote down expanding our family as one of our goals. And it took my breath away, I have to say. And I'm not saying, my goodness, I was an integral part of her fertility, or my goodness, I know my place within this. But I tell you what, when you show up for yourself, when you say, this is what I want, and this is what's in the bigger picture for me, and this is what I want to bring into my life, even though you're not sure how. I mean, I don't even know if she was in a relationship then or not, or things like that. When you connect with that, it's like it gives you a little springboard. It gives you that spring in your step when you need it. It gives you that momentum. It gives you that high five. Come on, you can do it. It's those moments, isn't it, in football where suddenly they have to play extra time. It goes to penalties and then more extra time, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's those moments when you're tired, where you feel like you've got nothing else to give. And to be honest, at the time, I was getting up at 5 a.m. I was doing a couple of hours of studying, and then I would drive probably an hour and a half to work. I would do a full day, I'd drive an hour and a half back, and then I'd do more coaching sessions in the evening. So and work all weekend as well. So it's very full on. But connecting with those gains, allowing myself, almost for me as well, to think, wow, am I putting together some building blocks for later down the line? Is adding this coaching stream going to help my future family? Yes, it is. And now when I look back on that period and I see how everything has come to fruition, that's a really lovely moment. And I'm not saying, and please, you may go quicker than I did, but this is 8 years of work here. So it's not just like the 90s makeover show where it's like, I was nothing and now here I am, 10 years younger. The next thing I want to talk about is up leveling. So when you make a move and you make a decision and you bet on yourself and you go, I'm going to do this, it's going to bring up all your shit. And I say that with love, and I say that I'm sorry for the coarse language, but there's sometimes no other way to say it. And I see this and I experience this with my long-term clients, because when I'm working with people, I ask you, what do you want? Where are you going with this? What's it's the Simon Cowell moment, isn't it? Like, what's the big dream, darling? But what is it? Tell me. Let's get really detailed about it. And usually, because they get that momentum at the beginning of working with me, then suddenly all the other stuff comes up. So maybe little things that have happened or that have felt easy before, maybe there's a few questions. Or maybe there's this work that goes in and then suddenly there's that moment from them of like, yeah, but is actually anybody going to buy it? And then the fear steps in. Or maybe they suddenly, I don't know, they hold the brakes on something because it's all ready to go. I know so many people who have online courses, they have books, they have all kinds of things, and they're just on the computer. They haven't gone anywhere because that fear of launching, that fear of releasing something brings up all the stuff. So I just want to say that with care and consideration, and not with any agenda actually, that when you're up leveling, it's two sides of the same coin. So actually what I needed to do when I was expanding, when I was learning, and I really just loved all those moments of being back in education and thinking about things differently, and genuinely with some of the coaching tools, I felt like I just unlocked something in my head. I was like, oh, that's why I do that thing. And I just loved the psychology of it. However, that did mean that I needed to take more baths, that I needed to exercise, that I needed to eat really good food, that I needed to protect my boundaries, that I needed to protect my space. So there's always two sides of the coin. Also, up leveling, growth, it can be really triggering. It can bring up stuff that maybe you've just taken for granted or you've never questioned before, and then suddenly you're faced with, oh, that's why that thing happened, or that's why I haven't done X, Y, and Z. Equally, you could be a trigger for somebody else. It's, I was going to say, you really know who your true friends are, but sometimes who you thought your true friends were are not the same people. So when you're moving and shaking into new spheres, the same people are not always going to come with you. And that can be quite a daunting process. Sometimes you standing up essentially and going, I'm going to do this, and I'm full of fear, and I know I haven't done something like this before, but I'm going to give it a go, can really trigger other people because it makes them feel insecure. When people around you start changing, it starts to rock the boat. When people are making bold moves where you've always, seen yourself on a par with them throughout your school or throughout your 20s or whatever it might be, or in a work situation, it starts to get a bit uneasy. And that moment of having to then look at yourself, I guess, and go, why are they doing that? Should I be doing that? It just starts to make things feel a bit sticky and tricky sometimes. So I just wanted to say that when you're thinking about the changes, one, really look at your costs. Look at what it's going to cost you. Really map it out wherever you can. And all of those things that are fuzzing around your head, the more you can put them in a calendar, or the more that you can carve out time, or the more that you could batch cook or do your supermarket shopping on a Monday so you know you've got good food, or blocking out time, or just really paying attention to what those costs are in terms of money and time and energy, it's really going to help you. Secondly, connecting with your why. Also, just to go back on those costs thing, sometimes people are resistant to do that because it makes it real. But I'm here to say that's exactly why you should do it. I want you to make it real, because sometimes actually I used to be like this with checking my bank statements. Like I always used to this is like 10-15 years ago, I used to dread looking at my bank account because I was like, oh no, I bought that top at the weekend, oh gosh, I bet I've spent loads of money. And I just used to go for days, maybe even a week, of not looking at my bank statement. And I used to build up into my head of it being far worse than it was. And actually, it was never that bad. So really thinking about those costs and making it real, you might actually be further on than you think. The second part of that is the gain, so really connecting to your why. The third is about up-leveling, and make sure as you grow, you've got plenty of things that will ground you and keep things solid and strong foundations as well. And fourth, noticing the triggers, or maybe when you're being triggering as well. The second point I want to make is about discussing with the people who actually need to know. And when I made this decision, I actually discussed it with very few people. I discussed it with my partner and I discussed it with my mum. Now, I wanted to discuss it with my partner because he was, there when I came home, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've done this, this and this. And I also discussed it with my mum because usually she's a good balancer in that way. She's really good at unpicking things, or sometimes just listening, and often she'll do it with zero judgment. So just being able to say things off your chest, and she will reflect back to you in that way. But I was really careful in this because ultimately I knew that it was the right decision for me. And when this comes up a lot in terms of clients or coaching, sometimes people will say, I need to talk to my husband about this, or I need to just, think about it. I'm going to ask my friends. I'm going to see what this is all about. But I tell you what, if you can do this without asking for permission, and instead selling, is that the right phrase? Sharing your dream and what you want, it's going to work much more in your favor. So at no point, and I was paying for it myself, at no point was I saying to my partner, like, please, I really want to do this. Is it okay? What do you think? But what I was able to do was to use those gains, which I was really clear about in the point before, and discuss those, like, oh my goodness, if I did this and I increased my income by 5 times, then we could maybe have a baby earlier than we thought. Maybe we can do this. Maybe we can go on this holiday. Maybe this will change. Maybe we can do that scholarship for that student that we've always wanted to do. So I started to sell the dream, basically, and really get clear on what we were building together. So be really careful, because sometimes when there's change occurring, it's triggering, it's confronting, and it's scary for people, because they're thinking, hang about, what are they doing? Oh, I'm not sure about this. And of course, do this very wisely, do your own research. And there are some weirdo coaches out there, or weirdo people who want to get into business. I'm saying this cautiously, of course, do your own due diligence. But those moments where you're going to go for something, or, sometimes I find it with clients when they go, I'm going to sign up for a personal trainer. And everybody around them goes, oh, no, you don't need that. Just get a video. Just do this. Just do that. No, it's fine. And actually, the person who wants to book the personal trainer is like, no, this is exactly what I need. So wherever possible, don't ask for permission. Really listen to that instinct and what you need. Number 8, I really did the costs of money. And I've mentioned this a little bit more, but I started to get familiar with what the change was going to cost me, and also what I would be able to charge after the change. So I really understood that I needed to work on my money mindset, which I was like, is this a thing? I feel like I'm being really cheap. When I look at my original prices, my goodness, no wonder I wasn't making any money. But I really started to notice what I needed in that moment, and basically my own stuff that I would need to work through in order to earn the money that I wanted to. So actually, the money is not just a spreadsheet, or it's not just an invoice. It's everything that goes around in that. So I want you to get used to it when you're making a change, of how does that look? How does that feel to sell it? How do you actually feel about the product? What does it feel like to say the price out loud? What are you available for? What are you not? Do you want to discount? Are you going to do offers? Are you having a business model that is a launch strategy, or is it an evergreen? How are you going to work that? And really making sure, I think the money mindset piece is always having a good, fully stocked picnic along with you. That if you put some good stuff in there, if you really have awareness around it, and you really keep it topped up and fresh and juicy and all the rest of it, it's going to serve you well. It's going to give you energy. It's going to push you on. But if you look at it and you're like, oh no, I should have taken my sandwiches out later that I didn't eat. Oh, there's a manky old apple core. Oh no. If you have those moments where you're checking, then that's a sign to me that it's going to slow down your business, because you're like, oh, there's a bit of a weird smell that's coming in. I don't want to carry that. And actually, I'm really hungry and I don't have the things that I want. So really notice that this money mindset is going to be a part of your situation. Number 9, really think about how you can use and how you can build your time and energy. And I realized before making this change, I used to waste so much time. And I will say that very freely with you, because I did. I used to watch all kinds of nonsense. I would get on social media. I would spend 2 hours getting ready. What I was doing, I just have no idea. So I would do all kinds of things. I'd be in the supermarket every night. There's another one, oh, I don't know what I want. I'll just buy something for tonight and then I'll go and get something again tomorrow. It's just such a time sucker. So I got really familiar with batching and really using my time and noticing it. Also noticing how my energy works. So I really understood how many coaching sessions I could do in the evening, or what I needed in order to perform at my best. Again, I should have known that because of my acting background, but for some reason I didn't see that as an important thing, and I really felt like I learned the hard way. There were times where I felt really burnt out, where I felt tired, and where I felt like I couldn't give my best. Also, how you use your time and energy, and you're making a big change. There's going to be moments where you can't do the things that you've always done. And that can feel like you're letting people down. And it can feel really rubbish. And it can feel like you're not a great friend. But again, if you go back to point 2 of selling the dream and really explaining to somebody what you're doing and what you're building and what it's all about, that will really help somebody focus and get connected with what you're doing and hopefully be on your side. Number 10, the commitment and who I was becoming. This is quite an emotional one because creating a change involves a lot of you. Not just your time and your energy and your money, but your heart and your soul. Because again, it's so much easier to stay the same. And one of the things that I've learned to do over the years is to bet on myself. And sometimes when I've had a baby at home in those early days, or I wasn't making any money, or I just have those really rubbish times in my business where I was like, am I actually ever going to work again? Am I ever going to get a job again? And learning how to ride that and learning how to make myself strong and resilient and resourceful have been some of the best uses of my time. So when in 2020 we are now in a global pandemic, I look back and I think, gosh, I should have panicked more. 5 years ago, I would have lost my mind. I would have been like, no, there's never going to be any more money. There's never going to be this. And I realized how much I'd healed because I know I can create stuff. I know that I will always have a strong money mindset because I'm aware of it, because I know I need to work it. It's like having a bit of a dodgy knee. You know you need to take care of it. You know you need to be considered about it. And I know that money mindset didn't always come naturally to me. So I've made a conscious effort to take care of it, to look after it. Also noticing who I was becoming. I got really clear about what came into my head, who I followed, who I paid attention to, whether or not I agreed with what they were saying, whether or not that person was an inspiration or in fact just a distraction, whether or not that person's interest, criticism, I shouldn't say criticism, maybe I should, feedback I'm going to say in bunny ears. I got to become familiar with whether that feedback was useful or not. Because sometimes they think it is useful. And you, as the recipient, you may just disagree. But I had to get really clear and give myself full permission to the person that I was becoming. Because actually I knew that I didn't want to be an actor who was like, I'm just waiting for the phone to ring. I'm just hoping for the best. I knew that I had an entrepreneurial spirit. I knew that I could make it happen. I'm going to take a breath. And I know that you can make it happen. The question is, what do you want to make happen? And what support do you need? And the temptation sometimes when you ask questions like that is somebody goes, oh my God, I need everything. I need everything. I haven't got anything. I don't know where to start. I have no idea what I'm doing. Before you go into that overwhelm, pause, check in, notice what you do have. The Oprah book, I can't believe I'm only just mentioning Oprah. What do you know to be true? What do you know to be true? Because there will be so many things, there'll be so many pieces that you have in place already. It's like when you build a jigsaw and you open the box and already you're like, oh, there's that big green box that's in the middle. Brilliant. I'm just going to pull all the green bits out, and that just becomes really easy. And then it's in place. And then you'd be like, oh, there's that weird orange thing. There's that orange door. Right, okay, I'm going to do that bit. Very quickly, you start to see what's going on, and you're making progress as you go. But you have to pay attention to it. You have to look at it and see what's going on. So now it's over to you. What do you need? What are your next steps? What's actually going to help you build the next chapter of your life and business? And even if you're like, yeah, but I haven't got any money to do that, or I haven't got any time, or is 2020 the right time to do this? Maybe I'll just park it and I'll revisit in 2021. I want you to give yourself full permission to start thinking about it now. Because rarely do we just wake up one day, like the coaching thing, because actually that's quite out of character for me. I am somebody who would like to explore and research and all the rest of it, much more than just jumping headfirst in. But let's just say it's going to take you a while to make a decision. So how long are you willing to wait? How long are you willing for things just to be okay or bubbling under the surface? I want you to ask yourself those questions without shame, without judgment. Just ask yourself, because until you do, you won't reveal to yourself what needs to happen next. One of the things that I was noticing this week when I was watching a great series on iPlayer, I was like, I want to do more telly. I love telly. I've loved it. I've always watched it. I mean, goodness, I'm not changing the world here, but like I've always loved watching it, and I've always loved like being in it. So I've been in TV shows, and like I love it. I love that whole process. And so I had to get really clear of like, what's that going to take? What does that goal look like? So as always, I'm here to help you build your personal brand. Do get in touch. Do let me know what you need, how I can be useful. Is it planning and thinking about what you need? Is it packaging? Is it how you pull it together and increase your income? Is it about presenting it? Is it about propelling it so people know, and so you don't have those back and forth emails, that people are just there and they get cracking and off we go? I would love to know. Thank you so much for listening. As always, do share this with a friend, or if you know somebody that would really just have been waiting for this kind of conversation, do screenshot the episode and share it in your stories. And of course, I will share it back as well and share with my community. So thank you once again. I'll speak to you very soon. Lots of love.